MAGA doesn't fight back. They wonder why we're not giving in to the bullying. They think we're crazy for being out in the street. It doesn't make sense to them that we're standing up for other people who we don't even know, because they would never. They would never. They are cowards at heart. Let me explain. I've talked about before when we talked about how white people are afraid of white people because we know that we commit violence in service of authority, right? We believe internally in the internal white structural identity is basically just fear of authority, blind obedience to anyone you believe has authority over you, because anybody who has authority over you has power over you, which means they can hurt you, which means they are stronger than you. Whether that authority is vested by the state or that they have given them in a social contract, authority is power. Power is the ability to harm you. So authority equals power equals violence in potential or in fact. So everyone above them in the hierarchy has the ability to do whatever they want to them at any time. They have blindly accepted this. They must be obedient. That's part of conformity. And then anyone who is lower or more vulnerable than them, they have a right through authority, power, and violence to dominate them and do whatever they like. That's the belief structure. That's why hierarchical religion and corporations and governments work so well on us. Unless you've done the work or been raised feral, you're going to conform to these things. And speaking of conformity, that superficial conformity, which is basically what they think of as their personality, is constantly shifting. It's uncertain. It's uneasy. It is quaky ground because fashions and fads and reinterpretations by authorities of what the norms are to which you must conform, how you interpret everything from laws to biblical scripture, is subject to change by people who have more authority than you do. For some people, the most static element of their personality, the longest running bit of their identity, is their loyalty to a football team. Everything else can be subject to change by someone else. Probably why they get insane about sports. But they don't fight back against authority unless they have ascribed to what they think is a higher authority. January 6th, for example, they saw the Dems as trying to take away their rights, trying to take away their power, trying to go against the system because they had connected themselves internally, identity deep down into their belief system with what they assumed and believed to be the highest possible authority. They believed that their guy was the president for them. For so many reasons, they identified with him, but they also believed that he should always be president. He should always have power and authority. And because he had the power and authority, and they were his extensions of self, they were part of him, they were part of his power structure, they therefore had power and authority. So they expected the Democrats, who they saw as weak and afraid, because looking for gun control or trying to reduce violence to them seems like the actions of someone who is afraid. Because they would only do that out of fear. They think that somebody saying that maybe we should control weapons of violence is coming from a place that we're all afraid of ourselves personally being victimized because we're not strong enough to defend ourselves. So we're going to try to use laws to make you safer to be around for us, the vulnerable, the weak, right? And they probably also thought that all of the Republicans in that building and every single member of law enforcement was part of their authority structure and would back them up, would help them, would let them do what they wanted to do. When officers came out against them and were saying, no, you can't come in, the only reason that the crowd kept moving, not only just momentum and crowd psychology, but also the fact that there were so many more of them than there were of the cops. So in that moment, seeing what they should have seen as authority figures turning against them, but being fewer in number and therefore having less power than them, they could just steamroll right over them. And that's why they did what they did. They are essentially bullies who are always victims of the bully above them and ready to bully the people below them. And they get angry whenever they see somebody stepping outside of that social conformity and norms, because that's a threat to that internal structure, that belief that all power goes only up and down and that you have to exist conforming and afraid of power. When they see other people stepping outside of that, it's confusing to them. Remember, the biggest part of their brain, apparently, according to that study, is the amygdala, where fear and anger are stored, not deep thought processing. They don't adhere to the law because of any moral, ethical choices where they believe that the law itself is just and therefore they should follow it. No, they follow the law only because they're afraid, only because it has the authority, the power, and the violence to harm them. They are at a lower rung of the morality scale. They don't think it through. They just know everyone with authority can hurt me. Everyone below can be hurt by me, but we all have to stay in and defend the internal up and down hierarchical structure of violence and power and the superficial surface level of conformity. So they don't understand why we aren't like that. So they think that by using more violence, more terror, more bullying, we're eventually going to figure out that we're supposed to give up. We're supposed to put our bellies in the air and let them do what they want. Their only answer to get us to do what they want is through the exercise of violence, through their power and what they associate with as an authority. They believe they're in the right because they've aligned themselves with the ultimate authority, the person who's holding on to the White House right now. And they think we don't have that, so they don't understand what the fuck we're doing. They would never ever fight for somebody that they don't identify with. We've seen that heat map of how people are able to have empathy and compassion and care for people the further away from their own internal sphere look, right? Where people who are more conservative really only care about the people that they can touch and see and to whom they feel some affinity or who they think belongs to them. Whereas people on our side have that compassion and empathy and ability to see others as valuable and human all the way out beyond the people we'll ever know. So they won't do that. And they would never stand up to authority. They would give up and give in, which is why I think when this regime finds a reason to take their guns, the vast majority of them are going to give them up without a fight, because it will be the patriotic thing to do, because it will align not with their stated beliefs in 2A, out of my cold dead hands, but because it lines up with their absolute obedience to power and authority. Anyway, something to think about. I love you very much. Please stay angry. Please stay safe. And please take care of each other and know that I do, in fact, love you. And I want to see you again. And we will talk soon.